Good morning, everyone. We welcome you to our Saturday morning Bible study. It's Saturday, December 30th, 2017. We are recording from the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent, Plainfield, New Jersey, the United States of America. And this morning, Mike from New York is our moderator. Go ahead, Mike.
Thank you. From Mary Baker Hardy, from Retrospection and Introspection, page 35. In 1870, I copyrighted the first publication on spiritual scientific mind healing entitled The Science of Man. This little book is converted into a chapter on recapitulation in science and health. It was so new, the basis it laid down for physical and moral health was so hopelessly original, and men were so unfamiliar with it, or with the subject, that I did not venture upon its publication until later, having learned that the merits of Christian Science must be proven before a work on this subject could be profitably published. The truths of Christian Science are not interpolations of the Scriptures, but the spiritual interpretations thereof. Science is the prism of truth, which divides its rays and brings out the hues of deity.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good one. Thank you, Mike. Any comments on that? I love the last sentence. Okay, well, I guess we can move on unless anyone wants to say anything.
So, just a general thing, but it didn't seem like we really read the Science of Man. Or was it incorporated into Science and Health, or what about that?
Actually, from what I had read, I think it's, as she states here, it became the chapter of recapitulation. But I do have something from the bookmark that had it in its entirety, and I have read it, but it's been a while, so I can't say much about it at this point.
I think you can get it from christianscience.org also.
Thank you.
Anything more on that? Okay, the topic...
Well, no, I guess there's a reason I brought it up. It always seems so mysterious because I've heard of the Science of Man since forever, since I was a kid. But no one ever sort of shows you a copy of it, you know? Although I've seen it later, but I remember growing up and sometimes it was mentioned, but no one seemed to have copies of it, you know?
Probably in the archives of... I don't know, Linda, maybe you can investigate it.
Okay, I think we actually have a pamphlet in this church, but I'll look, called Science of Man.
Okay.
Yeah, I got one from the, Healing Unlimited, the same as christianscience.org. And it says 1876, though, Science of Man by Mary B.G. Eddy.
Yeah, I would think it would be available. I'm sure you
It is, and the thing that's always interesting is that, I don't know how to put it, but as she says in the foreword that she lists, I think it's in the foreword that she lists as she was learning. So it's the same thing, but in a bit of a different language. So sometime one catches at least myself, I would catch a meaning from something like that I didn't catch out of Science and Health. I think it's very valuable to have the availability to read it all.
Well, thank you. I'm sure it is. Everything she wrote is...
I mean, I can easily share what I have. It's an issue then of, finding out what the copyright issues would be. know if it's something that from the bookmark, if one could copy it, Plainfield or etc.
Yeah, we could probably do that. Thank you.
I have a PDF of it. I can send to you and you can check it out.
Well, there you go.
Is it on our website then?
It's not. It's just one of the things I've gathered.
Oh, okay.
I think it's in the Red Book.
That could be.
Right.
That could be. That sounds.
Because I'm pretty sure that's where I read it, which was probably a couple years ago or so. But I pretty much think it's in the Red Book.
I think that's right. I feel like I've read it too, but I couldn't remember where. It's been a while. Thank you.
The copy I have, I like what it says. It says the science of man by which the sick are healed, enhancing questions and answers, in moral science.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Eddy did state that every single word that was written was valuable and that you shouldn't discard older editions of writings because they all had their value.
Thank you. Yes, I have found that too. I found that very interesting. She does say that, and very few people have a complete set of all her editions of Science and Health. I know that the Carpenters did, and what they had was sold and parceled out. And I know of this man in Texas who did, and who also researched all the changes as they were made. And he wanted to sell it for some big price, but and I don't know. I don't know how to reach him anymore. He's passed on. But yeah, it's probably something worth having and worth investigating. Would be great to have all her editions. At one time, I thought, where in the world will we store them all? There are a lot of them. But anyway.
I probably have about 8 to 10, and I just kept looking on eBay.
Thank you, Mike.
Bidding on them.
Does anyone know how many there are? I think it's in the hundreds. You made a lot.
188. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't know that she necessarily made a change in every one of them, but I think there were like 6 distinct changes, and so like the 3rd and the 6th edition, which was the 2-volume set, I have one of each of those a reprint, and they're very, very similar, but definitely also quite a few differences. So I think that it would be wonderful to have every single one, because even if she changed the wording in one sentence in the whole book, it would be interesting to know that.
Well, yes, it would be a good quest because who knows what's going to happen to all of these books or what already has happened to them. So that's good that you keep an eye out, Mike. And the other thing is people who go into used bookstores. That's where my brother would find unusual things. And I know Francis sent us a beautiful copy of
First edition.
the first edition, an original. So if we don't value them, I'm not sure who will or where they've gone. So we can all keep an eye out.
I do know that Longyear has all of them.
Longyear does.
Yeah, Longyear made a point of keeping all of that stuff.
Their collection is incomplete.
Yeah, they don't have all of them.
They don't. I thought they don't have all of
It's
them.
incomplete, but it's the most complete that I've ever seen. I remember looking at them going, wow, they have all of these editions, all the ones that they have. I thought it was kind of amazing. Somebody had at least that many.
The other thing is that the bookmark, I don't know what their status is now because I haven't gotten the catalog in a while, but they did have, like, the major ones. They had the one from 1886, 1891, and maybe a couple more. But they have in reprint that you can buy.
Okay, well, that's good to know, too. I do feel that the value of this is very, very important, and it gets more important because I don't know what's going to happen at the DOD Center. And already there's so much that we can't access, and it's only going to become more so. So we should have as much as possible of Mrs. Eddy's work for future generations.
Back on the Science of Man, I just did look in the Red Book, and it is in there. It's on page 204.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Yep. Well, that'll make an interesting read for all of us. Okay, Mike, well, that was good discussion. Thank you all.
Thank you. Okay, the topic today is big lessons on the little book. And Bible readings were from Revelation 10, Ezekiel 2, and 3 in Revelation 5. And thank you very much to Linda for getting, and Jeremy, I'm sure, has helped to get Revelation interpreted by Reverend Kratzer and available to us. Okay, the first question. Who is the mighty angel, and what can we learn from the symbolic description? Clothed with a cloud and a rainbow upon his head, and his face was as it were the sun, and his feet as pillars of fire. That's from Revelation 10:1.
What she says is the angel, a message was come from God, clothed the cloud prefigures divine science.
Kratzer said that the feet, the pillars of fire, are the foundations of truth and love. And truth and love destroy or burn up error in human consciousness.
I think the mighty angel is the angel that spoke to Mary Baker Eddy all her life. It was her relationship with God. And it was what she felt in her heart.
And she speaks of to mortal sense, science seems at first obscure, abstract and dark, the cloud, but a bright promise, the rainbow, crowns its brow.
Yeah, its face was the sun, the light of truth, which she sought and saw. The rainbow is light broken down into its elements, isn't it? It's all the colors of light. She sought the science of Christian healing.
Truth's prism.
Yeah, that goes back to what Mike read from Retrospection and Introspection, that science is the prism of truth, which divides its rays and brings out the hues of deity. But let's take each one at each one individually. And also, yes, in studying this, the only one we can turn to is Mrs. Eddy. You can't go into any other commentary, not as a Christian Scientist, because we know what Revelation and Genesis, she did get the word directly from God, or so we feel strongly and know to be true. So the first, okay, the mighty angel. I thought Gary's explanation was good. Say it again.
Well, it was the angel that spoke to Mrs. Eddy all her life. It was her relationship with God that gave her what what her heart was searching for.
And also gave John what he was searching for. It comes from Revelation.
Yeah.
It is that voice. And what does mighty mean?
Power.
Powerful.
Powerful, forceful, strong.
One and only.
Yeah.
Right.
Unignorable.
And the angel we know to be what?
The Christ.
The Christ.
Right.
It is available to all of us, isn't it?
That's what I was thinking, that this is so encouraging, that the Christ is with us right here, right now, every single one of us.
Everywhere.
Yes, that mighty angel. And in our Christmas story last week, there were so many examples, weren't there, of angels appearing. Appeared to the shepherds, they appeared to Joseph, appeared to Mary.
Here to the wise
To
man.
the three men, yeah.
I thought it was really good that we had some readings from Ezekiel in the Old Testament, and I thought that illustrated that Christ is throughout all time.
Yes, let someone read them to us. Bruce. Yeah, it was interesting how Mike put that in there. You have one?
I do.
Okay, then you read them, Jeremy.
Okay. But thou, thou son of man, hear what I say unto thee. Be not thou rebellious like that rebellious house. Open thy mouth, and eat what I give thee. And when I looked, behold, an hand was sent unto me, and lo, a roll of a book was therein. And he spread it before me, and it was written within and without. And there was written therein lamentation, and mourning, and woe. And he said to me, Son of man, eat what is before you, eat this scroll, then go and speak to the people of Israel. So I opened my mouth, and he gave me the scroll to eat. Then he said to me, Son of man, eat this scroll I am giving you, and fill your stomach with it. So I ate it, and it tasted as sweet as honey in my mouth.
So what were you saying, Betty?
I was saying that this was available throughout all time.
Yes.
And we have, it's written in throughout the Old Testament and about Moses and the various prophets that have had angel messengers speaking to them. In the case of Moses, directly, often.
Thank you.
But you really
I'm sorry.
you really need science to understand it. Otherwise, it makes no sense, which is, I'm sure, is why they want to take it out of the Bible. I know before coming here, it didn't make any sense to me at all. And now, with everything Mrs. Eddy has said, it is really clear that this is what this is. It makes 100% sense. So.
Yeah, we'd seen a movie about the Bible, and one of the things they said was one of their overall objectives. And what is it, the Council of Churches or something?
Yeah,
Catholic Church.
Some organization.
Yeah, perhaps the Roman Catholic Church wants to eventually get Revelation taken out, and they're watering down various words.
What is their explanation for wanting to get rid of Revelation?
This is what Jeremy said.
They just don't understand it.
They don't understand it.
Or they do understand it. they do understand
and they understand that they are the great red dragon.
And it will mean their annihilation. I think that's more the...
They want to change the word Antichrist to something else.
Yeah, something
water it down because they are accused of being the Antichrist.
Revelation is a fiery book, and one we all need to study and know more of. And I'm glad Mike has taken an interest in it, so we can delve deeper in it. So the mighty angel, yes, it's that voice, the angel message which comes from God.
This is Colleen. I got the impression that the angel was generic man, and like Christ Jesus was the best example of this coincidence of the human and the divine. And am I misunderstanding that?
That's a crazy idea. I don't know where you got that.
Where did you get it? That sounds like the organization, but I don't know. Where did you get that?
I'm trying to think where it was, but when I was studying this, I was a little confused on the whole thing, to be honest with you.
Well, I would take what Mrs. Eddy says about it. I don't know where you got it as generic man. That generic man gets thrown around a lot. We heard it another time. Oh, yeah, generic man, that's the woman in the apocalypse.
Right.
Everything's generic man. And I don't know what the heck is generic man. So,
okay.
I don't.
No, she makes it very clear. Angels are God's thoughts passing to man.
Okay.
And also, Revelation 1:1, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave unto him to show unto his servants, and I, John. So,
thank you.
And all you have to do, and if you were to look this up in the commentaries in Biblos, you'll get the point right away that you can't use some of those commentaries because Mrs. Eddy really does have the explanation. In some of them, they're talking about that little book being the Bible and so on. But they already had the Old Testament.
They already had the Bible. Yeah.
Yeah, they already had it. And so Mrs. Eddy's interpretation is the correct one.
It is correct. It's the only one. And, of course, most of mankind, or certainly the religious world, would disagree with that. So we must press on this truth because it is the truth. We know it to be. So are there any more comments about the mighty angel?
I wonder if I could just add something to what was read from Ezekiel. In chapter 3, in the wording in my Bible, it says, "And he said to me, Son of man, cause thy belly to eat and fill thy bowels with this roll that I give thee." And in the back of my King James Version, there's a short glossary of biblical usage, and it says the bowels were once supposed to be the seat of the emotions, compassionate feelings. And I was thinking that this was directing us to love this prophecy, to love this truth. And it just cleared something up to me because I never really understood about the bowels.
Thank you.
thank you very much on that. On page 222 in the Blue Book, Mrs. Eddy has the definition of spiritual senses, and under feeling, she says divine consciousness, which equals the Christ consciousness, and very much is what had been discussed about everybody having that available to them for all time and all places.
Thank you. Because this has to apply to us. That's why when we think that we can't understand science and health, I mean, that's just it's a belief.
It's a cop-out.
It's Satan talk, so that you just don't even try.
If we read it enough, we understand.
We do, and when you're living it, you will understand. What did you say, Jeremy, about studying?
Oh, I just have had this feeling that as hard as anyone learned to study anything before coming to science, that's how hard they'll study science when they come here. And I just think you get out of it what you put into it.
And she says that over and over, doesn't she?
Yes.
So if you are one of these superficial students all your life and just hither and yon and dipped here and dipped there, and well,
You get what you sow.
you do. And what I wrote on the forum yesterday about the steps that Mrs. Eddy took to write Science and Health, and how she sought the solution, and she searched the scriptures, and she read little else, and she kept aloof from society. How much, and all her time and energy, she lists what she did. How much of that do I do? And yet we want the answers, we want to understand it, and yet how much time are we going to devote to understanding it? We also want our healings, but how much time are you going to devote to it?
And she's very clear. What does she say is required of us?
Strive.
Thank you. We must strive to enter in.
The thing about the human mind is that it's lazy. And I was looking at Ezekiel again after people were commenting on it. And it says, at first, it says there's lamentations, mourning, and woe. And that might be the human mind saying, oh, you don't want to go there. But like Dale said, but if you love the good and learn to have an affection for good, and it's a fire that's within you, then later on it says it was sweet in your mouth and honey.
Well, to go along with that, when Ezekiel was speaking to the people as he was directed, they didn't want to hear it. They didn't think Jerusalem was going to fall. And then it did. And he didn't speak, I understand, for 7 years publicly until it did fall. And then he came and told the good news. We were going to be taken back. Jerusalem will rise again. Israel will.
Thank you. Okay, and then clothed with a cloud, which Mrs. Eddy says that it seems first obscure, abstract, and dark, the cloud. And at first, perhaps it does. But that doesn't mean you just say, okay, well, I'm done with that. It's too hard for me.
I think also it comes back to that the unseen things are the real and the true.
Yes? The less obvious.
Which may explain why a lot of people don't really seriously turn to Christian Science until they're fed up with the material world.
Thank you. It offers them nothing. You'll find that. It offers nothing. Promises everything and does not deliver. Lazy, what Bruce said, lazy, that definitely describes mortal mind. It is often the reason for so much trouble. It's just plain laziness. And laziness is why people are jealous. They'd rather be jealous of someone else than to do the work that's required to get where that other person might be. And they don't know the blood, sweat, and tears that person has gone to get there. So they just sit back and are jealous. It's lazy. Not a good word. Everything in science is earned, worked for. Work is part of our being. It's not handed to you on a silver platter. And even the lazy people will complain about that. So they want it that way. One to watch out for. I think it's a cause for selfishness, jealousy, all kinds of troubles. If you are indulging in any of those things, you can raise your hand and say, yes, I am a lazy such and such. Just admit it, okay? I'm getting where I have a little patience for that.
But I also think that a big part of it is what Jeremy said earlier, was that if you don't understand it, because I did go aloof between my association and class instruction, my association and Plainfield, and while it was not wasted time, I sure didn't learn what I'm learning now, and it would have been so easy for me to just throw it all in and give up on Christianity and Christ and God. But I still knew there was something that I didn't understand, and I'm just so grateful that these Bible studies are making it so much easier for me to actually read the Bible and now understand half of what's going on.
Well, and you had the love to not give up, but to keep searching. And God answers those prayers. He does. It never fails. If your heart is sincere, He will answer it. It's only when it's fake and phony that nothing seems to happen. And here we offer so much, and you can get it on many different levels. There are those of you who want, who just really do strive. They get help from practitioners. As I explained recently, this is the discipleship. The more you put into it, the more you will receive. And it's totally up to you. So it's here, but it's up to you how much you truly desire it, or if it's just a little part-time thing. And if that's what it is, then that's honest. Just be honest and let it be a little part-time thing. So you will not reap the blessings of those who earnestly give their all to it and for it. It's all here. Our church offers it. Many of you have discovered how much is here. And it is the pearl of great price. Okay, so we did close with the cloud. Rainbow was upon its head, so I think that's beautiful. The science is the prism of truth which divides its rays and brings out the hues of deity. This is the science that explains it. Anyone else on that?
Also the synonyms.
Yes. Synonyms.
A rainbow has 7 colors in it.
Interesting.
And so that would, to me, that would be the 7 synonyms, and then also there's 16 million colors. So I feel like that allows everyone to have an individual sense of all the synonyms of God. It can apply to each one in millions of ways.
That's beautiful. Thank you. How beautiful. Anyone else on that, the rainbow? And the synonyms, truly, you should work with them every day in your morning work for yourself, and expand it to your home, church, community, world. They're endless. This is Eddie's definition of God in the glossary. Highly important. And if you do work with it, you will have a deeper understanding of your Father, Mother, God.
And a deeper understanding of who you are. Because after all, it's those synonyms of God that you are the image and likeness of.
I certainly love the synonyms while watching, too.
They're invaluable in watching. You can just take one synonym and watch for an hour with that synonym, what it means for our world. It's endless. This is all endless.
I like what on the rainbow part. what Mrs. Eddy wrote about a bow of promise on the cloud in hymn 30. It just gives me a sense of a beautiful present being given to the world.
Yes.
I don't know. That's just the thought that comes to me.
Yes, we always view a rainbow, too, as something beautiful.
But the rainbow can also come in so many variations. I remember one time working as a farmer, and there was just a beautiful blue sky and puffy clouds. And way off in the distance, there was one cloud, and a bolt of rainbow came out of that cloud to the earth. I just couldn't believe that view. It was just so incredible.
And it's often after it rains you see the rainbow.
Yes, it is.
So.
All right, and his face was, as it were, the sun.
What does Mrs. Eddy say about the sun? Symbolizes the source of all truth, the source of all light.
You know, one thing about the sun, it's the brightest light.
Yes.
And another thing about the sun is it is always shining.
Yes.
Well, and the angel, the face of the angel, someone's face is how you recognize them, isn't it? The way you tell who they are. This angel, John recognized as being the source of all light.
It says when you look it fairly in the face, you can heal by its means, and it has for you a light above the sun. For God is the light thereof.
What does it mean to look it fairly in the face?
Well, to truly understand it and to face it and accept it and understand it.
What does fairly mean? Fairly? What is fairly? You look at fairly. You don't come with prejudices.
Right.
With misconceived, yes.
With preconceived
notions.
Preconceived.
Yes. You heard about so-and-so who died under Christian Science treatment. You come with all this baggage of negativity. Give it a fair chance. Look at fairly. And look at it straight in the face, not glancing at it sideways. But come with an open heart and mind and soul.
and not relying on somebody else or what somebody else has written about it to form your own views about it.
So that's real lazy.
That's lazy again. That's your lazy thing, yes.
Everybody has to do their own work.
That's it.
In the glossary, the sun is the symbol of soul-governing man, of truth, life, and love.
Thank you, yes.
Perfect.
And, you know, I often think if you are walking towards the sun, and maybe you have darkness in you, sickness, troubles, darkness, deep hidden darkness, but as you walk towards the sun, what does that sun do to the darkness? Puts it behind you.
It melts it,
Yeah.
dissolves it.
Where light is, darkness cannot be, can it?
No.
Vanquishes it. It vanquishes it entirely. Because to me, this explains all this. Well, does God know that I'm sick? Does God know that all this stuff? Well, as you walk toward that light, you think of it as a bright, shining light of love. Does it know that you're dark in there? Well, I don't know whether that matters. It just pours out its love. And that love vanquishes it. Whether it's sickness or financial problems or emotional difficulties, if you keep walking toward that light, it will vanquish it. The troubles. That's what the sun does. What God does.
Again, Daniel, turn to the light.
Yes.
Exactly.
That beautiful picture when the lions were going to maybe eat him. He would not look at the light, at the dark, at the lions, or he wouldn't think about how mean everyone had been to him. He looked to the light.
It
And
really
the light
says something about somebody who's willing to face that light, willing to look at it and let it shine into their heart. Like they're ready to release all the baggage that's been holding them back, and they're willing to not have anything hidden and concealed.
That's why the danger when you want to hide things. You're hiding from the sun. You're hiding what will heal you. You're making it yours. You're saying, I've got a problem and I don't want anybody to know about it. You're not trusting God, and you're certainly not trusting your fellow man. You've got to be willing to walk toward the light and let it shine. Only in that way can healing come.
Peter wrote a song about that.
Face
to the light.
Face the light, yes. It's a very, very important point in science. And again, if you want to hide your problems and not tell anybody and hide out, that again is your choice, but you don't have to. You're nurturing it. You're causing them to grow. You know, just like mold grows in the darkness. Well, let the light shine. Don't be afraid. It's always fear, lack of trust.
And pride.
And pride. Thank you very much. And then someone said, in his feet as pillars of fire. Truth and love destroy or burn up error in human consciousness and are so symbolized by fire. And that's just what we talked about.
Yeah. That's what Mrs. Eddy said. Truth and love are the most potent methods.
Thank you. Any more on that first question?
You know, when the light, the sun shines everywhere, so the truth is everywhere for everyone.
That's right. Mrs. Eddy says, what does she say about the sunbeam? Guess what? Glances
To the prison
cell. No place that it's not shining. And as Bruce said, it's always shining. The clouds might seem to cover it up, but it's still shining. You got to look past those clouds. You're the cloud, your own fear and negativity.
Okay, Mike, how we doing?
Tremendous, thank you. Shall we go on to number 2 then?
Please.
Sure.
What is the little book? And that's in Revelation 10:2. I guess I'll... Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the message of divine science.
It's the book that explains the science of Christianity.
It's Science and Hell, the Key to the Scriptures by Mary Baker Eddy.
That Albert Einstein referred to as the ultimate science. No, we can't go around spouting this, as Mrs. Eddy said, that in what Mike read earlier. She didn't venture upon its publication right away because she learned that the merits of Christian Science must be proven before a work on this subject could be profitably published. We can take that in our own lives to say our own lives have to prove this science before we can spout it off to anybody else.
Otherwise, it's just preaching. So you be the example. By their fruits ye shall know them. Anyone else?
I thought it was interesting when I was looking up the word in electronically that it was mentioned, of course, in the Apocalypse part of Science and Health. The only other place it was mentioned was in Fruitage, and 6 different testimonies refer to the little book that was handed to them or given to them or that they studied and read. And I thought it was interesting, and they put quotes around it, and she had those testimonies intentionally put in there.
Thank you very much.
She knew the value of this revelation that she received. She wasn't going to belittle it. Because she knew that the human mind would try to belittle it, which it is obviously trying to do.
Doing its best. Tomorrow I want you to bring what you sent me about Mrs. Eddy, the description that the BOD gave Mrs. Eddy, and then the description was that Bliss Knapp gave her. Okay? Tom from New York. They are doing all they can to belittle her and her discovery. And that's why our next Love is the Liberator is going to be Mrs. Eddy's place.
I thought a lot about this question about little book. And, I know she refers to it as, they say it's divine science, but it's most completely explained in the Science and Health. And to just use it as a general term, you need the concrete evidence. And nowadays, especially with all the many paths to God that's preached, or the use of some of the same language that you find in the Science and Health, but with the all the witchcraft and mind control and all the stuff behind it, so it's not spiritual. You have to be very clear about that it's coming from Science and Health, and very distinctive. It's not just anywhere, and it was not just from anyone, and it can't just come from anyone. And if you don't, you lose, I think, the significance of God coming and speaking. It's not. I think it's very dangerous to try to take it away from her, or take it away from the book.
You're absolutely right.
Thank you. I was gonna ask, why is it referred to as the little book?
One of the reasons is that when I looked through Strong's Concordance, book was 44 times in the New Testament, and it meant roll or scroll. But this one special little book designation is exactly that. It's a little book, and it only appears in Revelation 10, so it is very unique and special.
And I think that's what Linda was saying.
Right, exactly.
That it is saying there will be one little book that contains the final and complete revelation.
Also, in Kratzner, he says that translated from Greek, the little book means precious. Little means precious.
Yes.
And also so that it's comparatively brief in comparison with its mighty import.
Thank you. But they call it little. But in Kratzer, he says, the little book doubtless refers specifically to the message of divine science. The same order of revelation has now been given to the world in Science and Health with key to the Scriptures, as distinguished from, though in part at least included in, the message of the Apocalypse as a whole. It's definitely that book. It doesn't say these little books. It's the little book.
I would say also that here little means precious.
Precious, yes. Precious. And, Mrs. Eddy, called her first edition, I believe it was My Precious Volume.
Using the word "the" is the biblical authority, the fact that this is the final revelation. This is the truth that stands throughout all ages, is not moved by fashions coming and going, and people's opinions changing over the ages. This is the one that stands and stays, truth.
And in our work, in our watches, this is what we maintain. This is what we work at. That it will be acknowledged. It is the only one. When we had a few roundtable discussions on David Keeston's article, What Prospers Healing. Maybe Jeremy can put that back on the carousel again. We'll have parts of that in our next Liberator, because he makes it very clear what prospers healing is recognizing Mrs. Eddy as the woman in the apocalypse and Science and Health as the little book. And if you're not a Christian Scientist, you'd probably be appalled by this discussion, but that's okay.
Well, in this little book, it does say that future ages must declare what the pioneer has accomplished.
Thank you very much.
And if people say otherwise about Mrs. Eddy's place, they are disobeying the textbook.
Thank you.
Not only that, I just wonder where, if you look at the results of denying it, where do those results get you?
Well, that's the point. The whole point of this is not to, prosper, an organization or prosper an opinion. The whole point of this is for our own benefit. We benefit by recognizing the book as containing the revelation. We benefit by eating it up and digesting it. We benefit by all of this.
I think that's a very important point, because it was the same thing with Jesus and Christ, and they didn't accept him as being the one that was, and if they did, then the great benefit came from it.
That's right.
Yep.
And it's been proved.
In Revelation, he was the only one that could open up the seals, right? There's part where there were these seals, and no one else could open it up. Confucius couldn't open it up. Socrates couldn't open it up. No, none of these other people could open it up. The Pope couldn't open it up. Only the Christ could open it up. Remember that.
This is really very helpful. And what Linda was just talking about before, that this is the Christ. And are you there?
Yes.
We're here.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I was something happened to my phone. But anyway, I used to wonder when Christ said, or in the Bible it said, be careful of these people that come and call themselves the Messiah. And I thought, where are they? Well, now this makes it perfectly clear. It's all of these writings and taking from Mrs. Eddy, taking from the real book, and then using other things, and it becomes witchcraft. Thank you.
Yeah, you're right. This is why our clarity on this is so helpful. And if we know it together in unity, there's a tremendous power. It is overturning. And just as we learned the story of the birth of Jesus, a group of wise metaphysical thinkers in a dark age of Roman Empire brought forth the Christ, we can bring forth the millennium if we devote our best time and energy to it. Mrs. Eddy says that as well.
And this is why it's the only thing that really explains the Christ Christianity, makes that distinction.
Yes, this is Christ Christianity, the teachings of Christ, Sermon on the Mount, teachings of Christ. He doesn't say, if you don't believe in me, you're doomed to hell, or if you're not of my religion or whatever else. It's Christ Christianity. He's very clear about what he says. That's why we need to know this Sermon on the Mount.
It's the science of Christianity.
It is. It is. And we do experience hell by disobedience. There's no question about that. Yes, we do. But it's not some place you go to, the place you make for yourself, here or hereafter.
And unfortunately, that was proven by what happened 2,000 years after Christ and 100 years after Mary Baker Eddy.
Yes. So can we go on, maybe? Ready for number 3?
Okay. What is meant by taking the little book and eat it up, and it shall make thy belly bitter, but it shall be in thy mouth sweet as honey?
Well, Mrs. Eddy says it will be indeed sweet at its first taste when it heals you, but murmur not over truth if you find its digestion bitter, or the understanding of it. They're really, deeply understanding it.
I don't think that's what she's referring to when she talks about it being bitter. Not the understanding of it that's bitter. What is it that's bitter?
The light it brings to your consciousness that upheavals all the error and the changes you have to make.
She calls it chemicalization.
Yeah.
When it stirs up the latent errors, or not so latent errors, and forces you to make big changes, forces you to leave the false landmarks behind, forces you to drop the baggage. A lot of the baggage we carry around we think is pleasant. But if it keeps us from finding our relationship with God, it has to be dropped. Also, some of your friends aren't going to be happy about it. Some of your friends are going to disagree.
Friends or relatives.
And some of your friends and relatives might say you're crazy.
That's the bitterness. And, we've seen it where people comment, oh, this is so great, and I love, they'll have a healing, or they just, oh, God is love, and this is so great, I just love it. And then the way gets hard. Maybe the healings aren't coming so fast anymore. And yes, maybe their relatives are telling them to stay home. You don't want to go to that crazy church. Look at all this stuff I've read about it on the internet. You don't want to go there. And then pretty soon they're gone. That's what she's talking about. Are you going to be able to work through that bitter period? We used to call it a ring of fire.
Well, it is.
It is, and you've got to work through it. Whether you are getting the results or not, you have to recognize this is the truth and love it so much you will not desert it. And when you do that, the benefits that come eventually after being tested and tried are immeasurable and priceless. And
Mrs. Eddy's also made it clear, when the healings come, it's nice, but the purpose of that is only to demonstrate its principle. And the primary purpose of Christian Science is to destroy the sins of the world.
yes, that's been the lesson this week. And it's the sin that you don't want to give up. You want to not be sick and suffering, but maybe you have some pet sins you kind of enjoy. Then you don't want to change those.
Oh,
And it's the
sin
same-
of belief.
Go ahead,
Go
Juan.
ahead.
No, I was going to say, the sin of believing in the lie. Sometimes it's got us so long that, giving it up. We have to give it up, but it's just not. Giving it up is the difficulty. You don't want to, or you think, oh, I've always been like this or something. But
Yeah.
it's sinful not to give up evil as real.
Yes.
And it's the same thing that Jesus warned his disciples of. In the Sermon on the Mount, he says, "Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. Get ready for it. Be prepared for it. And don't let it throw you off. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. If you can overcome the persecution that you get, and you're going to get it, you will have a reward so great that no one can ever take it from you.
Because that's when you really learn divine love, because you have to love despite the hate, despite the persecution, and you have to impersonalize it and understand its nothingness. Love your enemies. It forces growth. It's tremendous.
And I think that's why the preparation of all these prophets to really have the truth in them. This way you can be shaken off with whatever hostility or rebellion comes at you.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that's why you can't think about Christian Science as an alternative form of healing. It's not what it is. It's the truth brought to light that transforms your entire life. And if you're not willing to be transformed, to learn what is real, then don't dabble in it. Don't limit it.
Yeah, Mrs. Eddy says that. You can't dabble in it.
And don't try to straddle the fence.
You will fall off.
He likes that. From the Blue Book, the sense of taste on the spiritual level, Mrs. Eddy says, is a relish of truth. So I looked up relish, which is great enjoyment, made pleasant to the taste. In 1828, Webster said, faculty of perceiving excellence.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
We have to relish it.
And you eat it up when you realize that it's the only thing that matters. It is your very substance.
And Elizabeth, what did you say on the forum about eating it up?
Well, I guess it kind of goes with what you said. Just, reading the book diligently is, don't just skip through it and read it once or twice, but you need to just continue. Suzanne read a testimony a few weeks ago of someone who was healed after reading it 11 times, and I think, wow, okay, well, I'm trying to read it through once, so I have nothing to complain about. I'm not, meditating or pondering or studying it on a daily basis, reading it through continually, and then again.
Thank you. Eating it up, devouring it, and then when you eat something, what do they say? You are what you eat, right? Okay? So if you eat up science and health, you become it. You will become it.
I was thinking that too, because I know, I've certainly had times in my life, a lot of times, where I ate like really badly, and then eating well after that. There's always some discomfort in the middle where you're sort of changing over. So, that bitterness of the belly.
Yeah, you're longing for those Twinkies.
Those Dunkin' Donuts.
Anyone else? Will we finish the last question then, or should we?
Well, let's do it very quickly, because it's 5 after 11.
Hey, Mike?
Mike?
What is meant by thou must prophesy again before many peoples and nations and tongues and kings?
lesson, freely ye have received, freely give.
Yeah, and this science governs the entire universe and everybody in it. It doesn't just govern Israel
Or Christians,
or
so-called
Christians.
Christian
Or
science.
Christians. This is the universal truth. Everybody, everywhere, is subject to this truth. So help them along.
See them there, and you will bring them there, because anything else is an illusion, an aggressive mental suggestion. But we certainly do our part by, as often as we can, declaring the truth, telling of our testimonies, being an example, how wonderful it is, how excited we are about it, how we relish it, as Mike said.
We have people logging onto our website from how many countries? 200, 150, 200 countries.
It's a lot. More than I knew existed.
Wow.
No limit.
Can we not offer them a cup of cold water?
Christ.
In Christ's name, yes. What better occupation do we have than that? Mike, you want to add anything that you have?
I don't think I have anything to add. This was just absolutely beautiful. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.